The courtyard lights threw silver across the water, turning the shark pond into a restless mirror. Zuri stood at the edge, one hand on her swollen belly, the other held out to the man she still called husband. Malik, please. We can talk inside. Malik's eyes were sharp and wild, like a hyena that had tasted meat and now feared the hunters. His white linen shirt was half untucked and sweat made it cling to his chest. The party music still thumped faintly from the living room. High laughter and clinking glasses drifted through the sliding doors. The governor's men had left an hour ago. The neighbors were asleep. The night belonged to secrets. You think I don't know what you did? He hissed. You think I didn't see your messages to Ao? Ao is my cousin, Zuri said, refusing to step back even though the pond breathed cold against her bare calves. He's a banker. He's helping us fix this. There's nothing to fix. Malik's smile was too bright. There's only loyalty. And you forgot yours. He moved too quickly for a heavy man. One step, two steps, and his palms crashed against Zuri's shoulders. Her breath ripped out in a thin cry as her feet slid on smooth stone. The pond swallowed her in a splash and a flutter of white fabric. Cold gripped her. For a heartbeat, there was only the shock of water and the heavy weight of her belly pulling her down. The pond lights glowed green from below, turning the water into a simple dream, a place with no air and no sounds except the slow thrum of pumps and the soft shapes circling. Sharks. She kicked and flailed to the surface. Her head broke into night air and she gulped, hair slicked to her face. Malik, she coughed. Malik, the baby? You should have thought of that. He stood over her, a dark cutout against the courtyard lights. His voice was almost calm now. You made your choice. A fin sliced to her left. Another ripple glided behind her. Zuri stilled, remembering what the caretaker once said, don't thrash, they react to panic. She spread her fingers and moved slow, like prayer made of water. Her mind raced anyway. The baby kicked once as if asking Mama? Malik, she tried again, voice softer, the way she spoke to a stubborn child. Let me out. We can fix this together. Please. He knelt, and for a brief second hope rushed into her. He was reaching for her, his hand stretching. But he only picked up her phone from the edge and slipped it into his back pocket. You always said the water listens, he murmured. Let it listen. A dark shape drifted under her toes. Zuri forced her legs up, treading lightly. She knew this pond too well. When Malik bought the mansion by the coast, he'd built this basin like a trophy, glass walls, imported coral, a small family of blacktip reef sharks. At first Zuri hated it. Then she learned the quiet of it, the way water can hold a story without shouting. And this pond held a story that could burn the whole city. Malik, she said, a different edge entering her voice now. Do you remember what's inside this water? He paused, the softness of victory slipping from his face. What are you talking about? You remember, she said, treading, voice steadying. You were the one who said, no one looks for fire in the river. You were the one who told Ao to get the canisters sealed tight. You were the one who called that truck in the night. The neighbors heard nothing because the waves were loud. The guards saw nothing because money makes eyes sleep. Or have you forgotten Malik? Something small and hard clicked inside him. His gaze flicked to the far side of the pond, where the ledge dipped toward a maintenance hatch. He swallowed. You don't know what you're saying. Oh, I know, Zuri said. I know about the contracts for the school roofs that never got built. I know about the hospital wing paid for on paper and dust in the air. I know about the project funds that traveled in envelopes and ended up in this water, in 2 blue drums wrapped in plastic and tied with rope to the grate by the filter. A beat of silence. Something brushed her calf, a fin whispered by. Zuri didn't flinch. You should save your breath, Malik finally said, but his voice lacked its steel. He stood and turned as if to walk away, as if the conversation were already a dead thing. Zuri drew a deeper breath. If you walk inside, she said, you will face nothing but quiet. But if I stop moving, your quiet ends. Because those seals have been swelling. Plastic is faithful until it isn't. Malik stopped. His head turned slowly. For the first time tonight, Zuri saw fear graze his face. Behind him, the sliding doors cracked open. Auntie Kemi, who had stayed late to help pack leftovers, peered into the courtyard, her wrapper knotted high on her waist. Malik, she called, voice low. Where is Zuri? The guests asked. Her eyes dropped to the pond. Ah. Go inside, Malik snapped, his smile switching on again, too fast, too bright. She slipped. I'm getting the staff. But Auntie Kemi didn't move. She had seen women have babies and men lose fortunes, and her eyes were unhurried. She took in Zuri's face. She took in Malik's hands. She looked at the pond's clear skin, at the shadows swirling beneath. "Lower the ladder," she said firmly. Malik clenched his jaw. Inside. Auntie Kemi's mouth compressed, but she stepped back. The door closed. The courtyard fell quiet again, except for the throb of pumps and the distant sea. Zuri's muscles trembled. She couldn't keep this slow dance much longer. "Malik," she said, the name like a soft drum. "Think. If I die now, people will come. They will drain this water. They will open the filter. And when those drums rise, the story will rise too." He stared at her. His tongue wet his lips. He remembered the night he'd lowered the drums with 3 men and a lie. He remembered the feel of rope burning through gloves. He remembered his own voice, "No evidence. Water keeps secrets." The water shivered. At first Zuri thought it was the chill. Then she saw it, a trail of pale bubbles snaking up from the far grate. A small crackle popped under the surface, like a mouth releasing a held breath. Something bumped her heel and drifted away. It wasn't a fin. It was paper. A corner of a note, soft as seaweed, floated between her and Malik. It turned in the current and laid its face to the light. A watermark showed for a second, the faint outline of an eagle, the stamp of the treasury, the ghost of a leader's face. Then it sank again, tugged by the filter's hunger. Malik lunged toward the maintenance hatch, sudden and clumsy, dropping to his knees on the slick stone. He grabbed the metal ring and yanked. It stuck. He swore under his breath, pulled harder. The ring gave and the hatch popped open with a cough of stale air. "Stay still," he barked at Zuri without looking at her. "If you make them." A shape passed under her again, slow, curious, not yet decided. Zuri pressed her palm to her belly, whispered a wordless promise. She kept her eyes on Malik. He leaned into the hatch, reached into the manual valve and twisted. The pump moaned. The water's skin trembled. The bubbles thickened near the grate, and then a long, low burp rose from the pond's throat. Something thumped the underside of the ledge. Once, twice, a third time heavier. The first blue drum rose from the deep like a whale's back, wrapped in ragged plastic that had torn along one side. Notes spilled from the wound, wet, clinging, falling away in clusters. Dollars and naira and euros all mixed together, stained with the dark green of algae and the sickly white of fear. The drum bumped the acrylic wall, turned and drifted toward the center. The sharks swirled away, wary of this new animal that didn't bleed like meat. Malik froze. Zuri let out a breath she hadn't noticed she held. She lifted her chin, gathering the last threads of calm. "You can still stop this," she said, voice soft with iron. "Pull me out. Close the hatch. Kaleo. We will return it. We will testify. We will save the child and lose the house, the cars, the foolish pride. Or keep going. Let me sink. Let the pond vomit your secrets. Choose." Slick bills whispered along the stone at Malik's knees. A few pasted themselves to his palm as if the money had reached back to claim him. His mouth worked, but no sound came. The sliding door opened again, just a crack this time. Someone else was watching. A phone camera's lens glinted like a small moon in the gap. A whisper of a voice, maybe a houseboy, maybe a guest who never left, maybe a neighbor who had followed the music, murmured into the dark, "I'm recording." Malik's head jerked up. His eyes darted to the door, to the drum, to Zuri, to the slow, circling fins. He looked like a man playing a game he thought he had invented, only to realize the board belonged to someone else. Water lapped the stone. The second drum bumped the grate below. Another seam split. A stream of wet notes fanned upward in a shimmering, shameful fountain. A shadow moved in the garden beyond the wall. Tires crunched on gravel by the gate. A soft electronic chirp sounded, like a car identifying itself. Whoop whoop. Not sirens, yet. But close. Zuri's arms were shaking. Her legs were on fire. The baby pressed low, heavy and insistent. The nearest shark veered, as if deciding it had seen enough, as if the smell of metal and glue and ink in the water confused it. She could hold for one more minute. Maybe 2. "Malik," she said one last time, and even she heard the old, sweet thread of belief inside the hard frame of the word. "Lift me out." He stared at her, face hollowed by the courtyard lights, hand still on the hatch lever. Then, with a sudden snap of decision, he turned the valve the other way. The pump roared. The water began to drop. And as it dropped, the drums rolled, the money streamed, and a dark shape rose from the far end of the pond, taller than any man, breaking the surface with a wet slap. A figure in a black wetsuit, a mask flashing like a silver fish, lifting a spear gun and pointing it not at the sharks, not at the drums but straight at Malik. "Don't move," the muffled voice said. We've been waiting. Zuri's fingers slipped on the slick wall as the water rushed past. The baby kicked hard once, twice. Malik's eyes widened. The spear gun's tip steadied. And somewhere beyond the courtyard, a real siren finally began to cry. Hours earlier, the day had smelled like mango leaves and ocean salt. Zuri moved through the house with the slow, careful rhythm of a woman close to her due date. The mansion sat on a spit of land where the city's high-rises gave way to palm-fringed estates and old fishermen's shacks. From the balcony she could see both futures at once, steel and glass to the left, cracked wooden boats to the right. Malik loved telling guests that their home was proof he had made it. Zuri used to look at the view and wonder what making it was worth if you could not sleep through the night. They had not started in a house like this. 5 years back, they shared a small apartment over a corner store in a neighborhood thick with jollof smoke and laughter. Malik worked in the governor's infrastructure office, a fast-talking project manager with American sneakers and native swagger. Zuri was a high school counselor, the calm in a building full of noisy dreams. He would bring her roasted corn wrapped in paper and talk big. New roads, new schools, new clinics, the state becoming a place that felt fair. He had a smile that reached his eyes. She believed him. It changed slowly. Promotions came. New friends with soft voices and hard watches began to visit. There were dinners at hotels where waiters called him sir, and never looked at her long enough to see she always ordered hibiscus tea. Then came the shark pond, the strangest of his trophies. Art, Malik said. Living art. He spent evenings at the water's edge, watching the black-tipped fins slice like commas through a sentence. When she asked why sharks, he told a joke about power. She laughed then because the house still felt safe. The first fracture came from a small thing, a misdirected email. Zuri was at the clinic for a prenatal checkup when her phone buzzed with a message to Malik's shared cloud account. She usually ignored his work notes, but this subject line bit, roofing phase 3, payment confirmation. She opened it. Inside was a list of schools, names she recognized, places where she had counseled teenagers under ceilings that leaked when it rained. The numbers attached were big enough to build roofs of light. The photos attached were old, recycled from a previous phase. She felt her baby kick as if trying to get her attention. That afternoon she drove past 2 of the schools. Blue tarps still fluttered like flags of surrender. No new roofs. That night, when she asked Malik about it, he squeezed her shoulder and said the photos were placeholders. Work is in motion, he said. You don't understand procurement. She let it go out loud. Inside something tightened. The next week Auntie Kemi stopped by with okra soup and stories. She had known Zuri since childhood, back when Zuri's mother braided hair on the stoop and sang songs from church. As they ate, Auntie lowered her voice. I heard something, she said carefully. People say money is moving by night. People say your husband is part of it. Zuri swallowed, spoon suspended. People say many things. Auntie met her eyes. Child, I love Malik because you love him. But I love you more. Be wise. Zuri didn't sleep that night. Her baby rolled and pressed, her mind rolled and pressed back. She had spent years telling teenagers to listen when their bodies whispered. Now hers whispered in a language that sounded like fear. In the morning she called Ao. Ao had grown up with them on the same block, the cousin who always took radios apart and put them back together again. He'd moved to Atlanta for school and stayed, working as a compliance analyst for a bank with branches on both sides of the ocean. He answered on the second ring, his voice tired, happy. Z. How are you and the little one? She told him not everything at once but enough. The email. The schools. The way Malik's keys had multiplied, heavy on his ring like a jailer's. Ao listened the way he always did, quiet, pencil scratching, eyes she couldn't see but could feel. Forward what you can, he said finally. Don't confront him again yet. Over the next month, Zuri learned the strange science of secrets. She scanned receipts left on countertops, photographed delivery invoices, noted plate numbers of trucks that arrived after midnight. She found a ledger half hidden in the library, names coded as rivers, amounts written as fractions like a puzzle for children. Ao called at odd hours, asking small questions that turned into big holes. He traced shell companies through a little island and back to the governor's brother. He connected invoices for custom aquariums to a firm that had never built a school roof but knew how to seal things to survive underwater. Water keeps secrets, the firm's brochure boasted in glossy blue print. Malik had left the brochure on the coffee table without thinking, the way a man leaves his shoes by the door. Then came the night of the drums. Zuri woke to the rumble of a truck and the low voices of men. She padded to the balcony, her robe tied loose over her belly. Down below, Malik and 3 men in dark clothes rolled 2 blue drums across the courtyard stones. They worked fast, glancing at the walls, the gate, the sky. Malik's voice floated up thin and taut. Easy. No scratches. Zuri watched from behind a pillar, colder than fear. She saw them tie ropes to the drums. She saw the plastic wrap tight as skin. She saw a man cut the filters, a smooth movement that said practice. The drums slid into the water and sank, leaving only a few bubbles, a few ripples, and a quiet that sounded like an oath. When Malik slipped back into bed, his hands smelled like brine. He curled around her as if nothing had moved. She lay still and memorized the shape of his arm. She told Ao in the morning. He swore softly, then went silent for a long time. Listen, he said finally. I've been talking to people, journalists and some folks who don't put their names on emails. There's a small task force. Off the books but real. They want to catch this clean with the money and the man in one picture. Z, can you hold on? I'm 9 months, she whispered. I can hold on for a breath. They made a plan that did not look like a plan. Ao promised help she could not see. Zuri invited Auntie Kemi to stay late after the party that Malik insisted on throwing to show donors progress. She positioned staff she trusted near the courtyard. She checked the maintenance ladder, the hatch, the lights. She told herself that if Malik did nothing, neither would she. She told herself that if his hands ever became a place where her child wasn't safe, she would stop believing he was a good man who made bad choices and call him what he had become. When night fell and the last donor left, Malik's smile had grown brittle. He drank neat whiskey and paste. Zuri stood by the glass doors, the baby heavy and ready. She told him she had sent Ao a message. She said his name with the softness of truth. The fear that had been humming in the walls burst out of him like a song turned wrong. He pushed her. Now, in the hard present, the courtyard was a theater with too many spotlights. The first diver, sleek black wetsuit, mask flashing, held the spear gun steady on Malik. Water poured into the maintenance hatch, the pump gurgling as it fought itself, levels dropping. The blue drums rolled and coughed money like exhausted beasts. Notes plastered the acrylic wall, then peeled away, flitting down like drowned butterflies. Fins cut uneasy arcs, the sharks unsure of a current that smelled like ink and glue and fear. Malik's face worked. He took a small step back from the hatch, palms out. Who are you? He rasped. The diver's head tilted. The voice came muffled but clear. Someone who knows where the roofs went. Zuri's breath hitched. The cadence. The little tilt at the end of a sentence. She knew that voice as surely as she knew the rhythm of her mother's prayers. Ao? The diver flicked his gaze at her, a brief slice of a look, then back to Malik. Don't move. Malik's eyes darted between the gun and the door. Sweat drew paths through the courtyard, dust on his cheekbones. He laughed, a short, ugly sound. This is theater, he said louder, as if addressing the invisible camera in the door crack. My wife fell by accident. A relative shows up in a costume. Very funny. Very. A laser dot bloomed red on the diver's mask. It was small, the size of a coin, but it pinned time to the tiles. Ao did not flinch. He did not look up to find the source. He simply shifted, putting his shoulder between the dot and Zuri. Down, he barked. Zuri ducked instinctively, hands over her head, stomach clenching. A crack split the night, sharp, metallic, smacking the courtyard like a hand. The diver's mask starred, a delicate spider web of fractures. He ripped it off and sucked air, spear gun wobbling but not dropping. The shot had not come from the house. It had come from beyond, somewhere over the wall where the palms met dark sky. A second dot skittered along the acrylic panel like a restless insect, then landed, steady, on Malik's chest. Malik blinked. For a second he looked like a boy who had been called out of class without knowing why. Then he did something Zuri would remember for the rest of her life. He smiled, not the brittle donor smile, not the wolf grin of a man sure he would not be caught, but a strange, soft smile of relief. He lifted his hands higher, fingers open, and whispered, "Help me," to the darkness beyond the wall. "Move away from the hatch," Ao said, voice lower now, controlled. "Hands where I can see them." Malik stayed still, eyes on that red dot. "You hear me?" he called louder to whoever was on the other side of the night. "Take her out first. The woman. She's the witness." Zuri felt it then, the baby pushing hard, deep and insistent. A warm rush broke between her legs, lost in the cold pond, but she knew what it was. Her water this time, not the house's. Pain gathered, then released, a warning drumbeat. "Ao," she gasped. "It's time." He spared her one quick look, And in that look was the whole block they came from and the summers they spent racing to the store and the promise he made the day she told him she was pregnant, to be the kind of man who shows up. He nodded once, barely, and shifted his stance. The red dot on Malik's chest slid lower, then jerked sideways as if whoever held the scope had laughed. A voice floated over the wall, lazy and cruel. "We don't take instructions from thieves." Another crack. The bullet did not hit the diver or Malik. It hit the acrylic. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world tore. The panel did not explode in cinematic shards. It crazed, lines racing out from the bullet's kiss like a frozen river breaking in spring. A seam opened near the base, a low, wet groan, and the pond released itself. First a rush, then a roar, water gushing through the split, money and sharks and drums tumbling in a violent, churning spill. The force yanked Zuri like a rag. She grabbed for the smooth wall and found nothing. Her body spun, belly heavy, pain rising like a tide in her spine. She saw Ao leap, spear gun thrown aside, reaching for her with both hands. She saw Malik slip, windmill, and vanish under the froth. She saw a black fin flash by, frantic rather than hunting. She heard Auntie Kemi scream from the doorway. She heard the sirens swell and stutter as vehicles hit the gate. And then she felt a different pull, low, dragging her toward the filter grate, where torn plastic flapped like flags and banknotes writhed like trapped fish. Zuri sucked air and did the math without words. As she went into that grate, the baby went with her. She kicked hard, once, twice, the old swimmer in her remembering the school pool and the whistle blast. A hand clamped around her forearm like a cuff. "Oh." He pulled. Her shoulder screamed. She gasped and kicked again. The red dot found someone new. It slid along Ao's bare cheek and settled at the corner of his eye. "Don't," Zuri whispered, though she knew the shooter could not hear her over the roar. Another crack. The gunshot split the night like thunder trapped inside a courtyard. Ao's head snapped sideways. Zuri screamed, the sound drowning beneath the crash of draining water. But the bullet hadn't found him. It had slammed into the metal pipe behind him, spraying shards of concrete and mist. Ao blinked hard, a thin cut along his temple bleeding into his eye. "I'm fine," he gasped, gripping Zuri tighter. "Hold on." The courtyard was chaos. The pond, once an elegant centerpiece, was now a whirlpool of collapsing secrets. Water rushed through the cracked acrylic, spilling across the marble floor. The blue drums tumbled out, spinning wildly, tearing free from their ropes. Torn wads of soaked cash floated like seaweed, plastering the walls and Malik's face as he clawed his way to the edge. Zuri's contractions came like punches. Pain tore through her back, the kind that steals breath and thought. She could taste salt and blood. "Ao, I can't." "Yes, you can," he shouted over the roar. He hooked his arm under her shoulder and kicked off the broken ledge, dragging her through the shallower flood. His other hand reached for the collapsed garden bench, anything stable. Another shot cracked from beyond the wall. This one punched into the courtyard floor near Malik's knee, splattering shards. Malik screamed and crawled toward the sliding door, leaving streaks of blood and money behind him. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. Headlights flared through the gates. Voices barked commands, military not police. "Perimeter secured," someone shouted. "No one moves." Zuri barely heard them. Pain swallowed the world. Her knees hit the marble and she clutched her belly. A gush of water and blood pooled beneath her. "It's coming," she gasped. "The baby, it's coming now." Ao's eyes widened, torn between his cousin and the rifles beyond the wall. He glanced toward Malik, who had slumped against the glass door, chest heaving. The red dot had vanished, but new beams, white and searching, swept across the walls. Then came the unmistakable clatter of boots. Armed men in tactical vests poured through the gate, moving with cold precision. They were not Malik's men. Their insignia was clean, unfamiliar. The first one to enter scanned the courtyard, weapon raised. "Federal Task Force," he shouted. "Hands where we can see them." Ao raised one hand, the other still supporting Zuri. "She's pregnant, she's in labor." The officer hesitated, signaled to another. Two approached, rifles still up but eyes softening when they saw the woman in the water. "Call medic unit." Zuri was half-conscious, clinging to Ao's arm. Between contractions, her eyes searched for Malik. He was sitting now, back against the door, hands trembling as he stared at the shredded bills floating around him. His lips moved soundlessly. For the first time, Zuri saw true panic in him, not fear of being caught but fear of being small. When the medic crouched beside her, Zuri's voice broke. "Save the baby? We'll get you to the ambulance," the medic said quickly. "Don't fight it. Just breathe." As they lifted her onto a stretcher, Malik suddenly lurched forward. "Wait," he shouted, voice hoarse. "You don't understand, there's more. There's—" Ao moved faster than the officers. He grabbed Malik's collar and slammed him back against the wall. "Enough," he hissed. "You've done enough." Malik glared at him through bloodshot eyes. "You think they'll protect you? You think the governor won't bury you too?" Ao's fist tightened. "Let him try." The officers pulled them apart, shouting orders. One of them pressed Malik down, cuffing his wrists. The other guided Ao away from the chaos. And then, Zuri screamed again. A long raw sound that cut through the noise of boots, water, and engines. "It's now," she cried. "Please, don't let me lose it." The medic shouted for towels, for hands, for light. They had no time to move her. Under the faint glow of the courtyard lamps, amidst floating currency and debris, Zuri pushed. Ao knelt beside her, gripping her hand. "You're strong, Z," he whispered. "You always were." She bore down again. A wet cry filled the air, not hers this time but something smaller, fragile, and fierce. The medic caught the newborn in trembling hands, swaddled it with the bottom half of his vest and held it up to her. "A girl," he said softly. "You have a baby girl." For one perfect moment the chaos hushed. Zuri reached out, touching the tiny hand. The baby's cry faded into a soft whimper. "My angel," she breathed, tears mixing with salt water. Malik watched from where he sat, eyes wide. Something in his face cracked. Not remorse, not yet, but the faintest shimmer of what could have been love. Then his gaze drifted past them toward the broken hatch. The blue drums were gone, swept out by the current through the drain that led to the open lagoon. Millions, his millions, floating away into the dark tide. He laughed. It was not the laughter of a sane man. It was hollow, echoing through the courtyard like a ghost. "It's gone," he muttered. "All of it, gone." The officers exchanged wary glances. "Get him in the van," one ordered. As they dragged Malik to his feet, he kept laughing, muttering fragments. "Water keeps secrets, but not mine, not mine." Zuri lay weakly on the stretcher, her newborn against her chest. Ao crouched beside her, blood still trickling from his temple. "It's over," he said quietly. But Zuri's eyes didn't soften. She turned her head toward the broken pond and whispered, "No, Ao, not yet. He still has something buried, something worse than money." Ao frowned. "What do you mean?" Zuri's lips trembled. "He said there were 2 nights. 2 trucks. Only one came here." Ao froze. "The second?" Zuri looked toward the ocean, where the sound of waves blended with distant sirens. "If the first was money," she said faintly, "then what did he hide in the other?" The medic adjusted her foreline, motioning for them to clear the way. They lifted Zuri and her baby toward the waiting ambulance. Ao followed close behind, dread curling through his gut. Behind them, Malik screamed as the officers forced him into the van. "You'll never find it," he shouted, voice cracking into a manic laugh. "You'll never find what else I put in the water." The courtyard fell silent except for the hiss of the draining pumps. Moonlight shimmered on the remaining puddles, where a few soaked bills clung to the tiles like lost promises. Ao watched the van pull away. He turned to the lead officer, jaw set. "We need divers at the lagoon," he said. "Now." The officer nodded grimly. "Already on it." Ao exhaled and followed the ambulance down the hill, unaware that far below, at the edge of the murky lagoon, a fisherman was already hauling in his morning catch, a tangled net heavy with fish, seaweed, and something metallic, sealed tight, glinting faintly beneath the moonlight. The man squinted, curious, and began to pull. The lagoon was calm by dawn, its surface painted with soft gold from the rising sun. Fishermen's boats drifted lazily, nets gliding through the water in familiar rhythm. To them it was just another morning, but to the man in the red cap, it was a day he would never forget. He had been up since 4, humming an old Yoruba song about patience and fortune. His name was Baba Tund, a widower who fished near the governor's estate because the water there was always richer, though he never knew why. That morning his net had caught something heavier than usual. He tugged once, twice. The line fought back, dragging his small wooden canoe sideways. "Ah, now wet'n be this?" he grunted, muscles straining. When the catch finally broke the surface, it wasn't fish that glistened. It was a metal drum, sealed tight and wrapped in torn blue plastic. The side had markings faded by salt, property of Bayfront Construction Ltd. Baba Tund frowned, tapping it with his paddle. It gave a hollow clang. Not oil. Not fish. Not empty either. Something shifted inside, something dense. "Ah, this one no be for me," he muttered uneasily. "People way day hide things for water, dem no day do am for blessing." He tied the drum to the side of his boat and started paddling toward the police dock, muttering prayers under his breath. He never noticed the black SUV parked up the hill, engine idling, windows tinted dark. Inside the SUV, a man in a gray suit watched through binoculars. "We found the second drum," he said into his phone. "A fisherman just hauled it near the East Lagoon." A distorted voice replied through the speaker. "Retrieve it quietly. No media. The governor can't be linked yet." The man pocketed his phone, stepped out, and began walking toward the shore. At St. Mary's Hospital, Zuri lay in a quiet room, pale but alive. The baby slept in a transparent bassinet beside her, small chest rising and falling. Ao sat by her bed, bandage around his head, a paper cup of coffee cooling in his hands. "You named her yet?" he asked softly. Zuri smiled weakly. "Yes, Mara. It means grace." Ao nodded. "Fitting. She came through hell with grace." Zuri's eyes darkened. "Is Malik?" "He's in custody," Ao said. "They took him to the state security unit overnight. The task force is working with federal agents now. They found the ledgers, the fake contracts, everything." Zuri exhaled, long and shaky. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to lean back without looking over her shoulder. "He used to say the system was the problem," she murmured. "That if he didn't take what he could, someone else would. I never realized he was becoming the system he hated." Ao looked at her, his voice gentle. "You saw it too late, but you did what many wouldn't, you stood up." Zuri shook her head. "I didn't stand up, Ao. I survived." "That's different." They sat in silence, broken only by the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. Outside, nurses exchanged shifts, and the smell of disinfectant hung heavy in the air. Then Ao's phone buzzed. He answered quickly. "Yeah." The line crackled. It was one of the field officers. "Sir, we just got word, there's a second drum from the pond. A fisherman found it near the lagoon." Ao straightened. "What's inside?" "Not cash this time," the officer said grimly. "We're waiting for full clearance to open it. The governor's people are already here trying to interfere. Looks like this goes deeper than Malik." Ao rubbed his forehead. "Send me the location. I'll meet you there." When he hung up, Zuri was watching him closely. "What happened?" "They found the second drum," he said. "Your husband wasn't lying, there was more." "What's inside it?" He hesitated. "We don't know yet." Zuri's hand went to her chest. "Ao, you think it's people?" Her voice broke on the word. Ao swallowed hard. He didn't answer. By midday the lagoon was crowded. Police vans lined the sand, and the black SUV had been joined by two more. The air smelled of fuel and brine. Officers in gloves surrounded the drum Baba Tund had brought in, now sitting on a tarp. The fisherman stood nearby, nervously clutching his cap. "I tell Una I no touch em. I just see em for my net," he kept repeating. "Thank you, Baba," an officer said kindly. "You did the right thing." Ao arrived moments later, flashing his temporary credentials. "Let me through." The senior officer nodded. "Good timing, sir. We were about to open it." The drum was dented but intact. Ao crouched, examining the welded lid. A faint smell of chemicals wafted from a small leak near the rim. "Get hazmat ready," he said. "Could be toxic." They pried the lid open slowly, metal groaning as the seal gave way. A rush of foul, stagnant air escaped, thick enough to make the younger officers gag. Ao covered his nose and peered inside. At first it looked like black sludge, until he saw fabric. A torn strip of patterned Ankara cloth. Then something pale, shaped like a hand. "Dear God," Ao whispered. The officer stepped back as he signaled for the forensic team. Inside the drum was a decomposed body, female, based on what remained of the frame. Weighted down with concrete blocks, wrists bound. Baba Tund crossed himself. "Alyawa save us," he murmured. One of the officers found a bracelet still clinging to the wrist, gold with a small inscription, "To Halima, for loyalty and silence." Ao's stomach turned. He recognized the name instantly. Halima was Malik's assistant, the one who'd vanished 3 months ago after the last audit. Malik had told everyone she moved to Canada. "Get this sealed," Ao ordered, voice tight. "No leaks to the press." "Not yet." He turned toward the SUV, where the man in the gray suit stood watching silently, phone in hand. "You're not task force," Ao said flatly. The man smiled faintly. "I represent interests that don't appreciate chaos." "Tell your interests," Ao snapped. That this isn't just stolen money anymore. It's murder. The man's smile vanished. He lowered his phone. Be careful, Mr. Ao. You've made powerful enemies already. Ao stepped closer. I don't scare easy. They locked eyes for a long, silent moment before the man turned and walked back to his car. That evening, Ao returned to the hospital. Zuri was awake, nursing Amara. The light from the window bathed the room in orange glow. When he entered, she saw the answer in his face before he spoke. It wasn't money, was it? She whispered. No, he said quietly. It was Halima. Zuri's eyes filled with tears. He killed her. She probably threatened to expose him, Ao said. She knew too much. Zuri stared at the baby in her arms. She helped him bury lies and paid for it with her life. Ao nodded solemnly. But now the whole truth will come out. Zuri's jaw tightened. Make sure it does, Ao. Promise me, no matter who tries to bury it again. I promise. For a while, silence hung between them, heavy, sacred. Then from the corridor, the news flickered on the waiting room television. Breaking news. Governor Ibrahim announces emergency leave amid corruption probe. Sources close to the investigation suggest the arrest of senior aide Malik Danjuma may expose a larger network of embezzlement and political violence. Zuri turned to Ao, her voice steady but trembling at the edges. They're moving fast. Ao exhaled. Not fast enough. Audience engagement prompt, seamlessly integrated. As Zuri drifted to sleep with Amara on her chest, the camera of the story would slowly pan to the hospital window, where the sunset deepened over the city skyline. What would you have done if you discovered the person you loved most was hiding something deadly right under your home? Would you have kept the secret to protect your family, or exposed it like Zuri did? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're still watching, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell us where you're watching from. Your comments help us keep these African tales alive. But as night fell again over the coast, another secret was already stirring, one even Zuri didn't know about. Far away in a cold government basement, Malik sat handcuffed at a steel table, staring at a folder marked Classified, Project Lagoon. The door creaked open. Someone slid into the seat across from him, a woman in a navy suit with no name tag. You thought the money was yours, she said quietly. You thought you hid it well. But you weren't stealing from the governor, Mr. Danjuma. You were stealing from us. Malik's lips parted. Us. The woman leaned forward, eyes glinting. Welcome to the real owners of the lagoon. And for the first time since his arrest, Malik stopped laughing. The interrogation room smelled of disinfectant and tension. The single bulb overhead flickered every few seconds, casting a pulse of light that made Malik's sweat glisten. His cuffed hands trembled slightly on the steel table. He wasn't sure if it was fear or withdrawal, from power, from control, from the illusion of safety. The woman in the navy suit sat opposite him, legs crossed neatly, an expression carved from stone. Her voice was calm, almost kind, and that frightened him more than shouting ever could. Let's skip the pretense, Mr. Danjuma, she said, sliding a photograph across the table. Do you know this woman? Malik leaned forward. The photo showed Halima, her smiling face framed by braids, standing in front of the construction site sign that had read Future State Primary School Project. A lifetime ago. He swallowed hard. She was my assistant, he said carefully. She disappeared. She didn't disappear, the woman replied. She was silenced. And we both know who ordered that. Malik's throat tightened. I don't know what you're... Please. Her tone sliced through his words. We have the body. We have the bracelet you gave her. And we have footage from your estate security cameras showing her entering the compound 2 nights before she went missing. She leaned back, folding her arms. Now I'll ask again, who helped you move the second drum? Malik's mouth went dry. His mind raced through faces. The driver who never asked questions, the men who worked in shadows. He realized that protecting them was useless now, they would already be erasing their traces or him. You wouldn't believe me, he muttered. Try me. He hesitated, then exhaled sharply. It wasn't my plan. I thought we were just diverting funds, the usual game. But after Halima threatened to expose us, things changed. The governor brought new people. They weren't civil servants. They didn't speak much, and when they did, it wasn't in English. The woman's brow arched slightly. Foreign operatives? Malik nodded. They said the lagoon would be useful, for future shipments. I didn't ask what kind. The woman tapped the folder with her finger. That's what we're trying to confirm, whether Project Lagoon was just money laundering or something worse. She stood. You'll stay here until we decide which one you are, a witness or a liability. As she turned to leave, Malik's voice broke. If I cooperate, can you protect me? She paused at the door. That depends, Mr. Danjuma. From whom do you need protection? Malik's gaze dropped to his cuffed hands. From the governor, he said. Then his voice dropped lower, trembling. And from the people he was stealing for. At St. Mary's Hospital, Zuri awoke to the sound of soft rain against the window. Amara slept beside her in a cot, her tiny fingers twitching in dreams. The world outside was moving again, news crews, court orders, protests. She could hear distant sirens and the low hum of reporters in the hallway. Ao entered quietly, his eyes weary but alert. You're awake, he said. How's she doing? Strong, Zuri smiled faintly. She eats like her father used to. Ao hesitated. We got the autopsy results from the lagoon. Zuri looked up sharply. Halima? He nodded. She was pregnant. Zuri froze. What? 2 months, Ao said grimly. They think it might have been Malik's. Zuri turned away, a deep ache rising in her chest. So that's why he killed her. Maybe, Ao said. Or maybe she threatened to tell the real story behind those shipments. Either way, she became a liability. Zuri stared out the rain-blurred window. He didn't just betray me, she whispered. He betrayed everyone. The schools, the hospitals, the people who believed in him. Ao sighed. That's how corruption works. It starts as survival and ends as rot. He looked down at his phone, reading a new message. His face hardened. They just moved Malik out of state custody. Federal agents took him. No press access. Zuri frowned. That fast. Too fast, Ao said. Someone doesn't want him talking. Across town in the governor's mansion, the air was thick with panic and perfume. Governor Ibrahim paced his study, his usual calm gone. 2 aides hovered nearby, avoiding eye contact. Find out who authorized that task force raid, he barked. And why my name is being dragged into this circus. Sir, one aide said nervously, they have evidence linking Bayfront Construction to your brother's company. Ibrahim slammed his hand on the desk. My brother is irrelevant. The one who took the fall was Malik, and that's how it stays. The aide nodded quickly. Understood, sir. But the governor's eyes were already on his phone, scanning a message. It was from an unknown number. The second shipment has been exposed. Proceed with contingency plan B. He deleted the message instantly, his jaw tightening. Call our contact at the agency, he said coldly. If Malik talks, we all go down. Back in the hospital, Zuri was visited by a detective from the task force. Inspector Karim, a tall man with a tired face and a quiet voice. Mrs. Danjuma, he began, I know you've been through a lot, but I need to ask you one more thing. Before your husband was arrested, did he ever mention something called Project Lagoon? Zuri blinked. He said the lagoon would feed the future. I thought it was one of his strange metaphors. Karim sighed. It wasn't metaphor. It was code. We just found records of offshore transfers tied to a company importing chemicals, the kind used for weapons testing. Zuri's blood ran cold. Weapons. We think the lagoon was being used to hide more than money, Karim said. Maybe a smuggling route. Maybe worse. He lowered his voice. Your husband may have stumbled into something much bigger than him, and now that it's unraveling, everyone connected is in danger. Zuri's hand instinctively moved to her baby's head. You mean we're in danger? Karim nodded grimly. I'll have officers posted outside your room. Don't leave the hospital until we clear the area. When he left, Ao leaned against the wall, rubbing his temples. Weapons, Zuri. That's not just corruption, that's treason. Zuri stared at her reflection in the glass, voice barely a whisper. He brought death into our home, and called it success. That night, the hospital corridor was quiet. The rain had stopped. Zuri drifted into sleep, holding Amara against her chest. In the hallway, 2 men in black suits entered silently, flashing fake credentials at the security guard. We're federal protection, one said. The guard nodded sleepily and waved them through. They stopped outside Zuri's room. One of them pulled a small silenced pistol from his jacket. Inside, Zuri's eyes fluttered open, maternal instinct, that invisible sixth sense. She heard the soft click of metal, the almost inaudible whisper of shoes on the tile. She clutched her baby tightly, heart pounding. Ao, she whispered. But Ao wasn't there. He had gone downstairs to get food. The door handle turned slowly. Then, bang. The door exploded inward, splinters flying. Ao stormed in shouting, "Down!" His gun was already raised. One of the guards from earlier had warned him something felt off. The first hitman turned too slow. Ao's shot hit his shoulder, spinning him backward. The second man ducked behind the door and fired wildly. Bullets ripped through the curtains. Zuri screamed, covering Amara. Within seconds, real security swarmed the corridor. The hitmen were tackled, disarmed, pinned. Ao rushed to Zuri's side, checking her and the baby. Both shaken but unhurt. "You okay?" he breathed. Zuri nodded weakly. "They came for us." Ao's jaw tightened. "No. They came to finish Malik's story." He looked at the unconscious gunman being dragged away. The man's phone had fallen to the floor, screen still glowing. One text thread was open, a single message from an unknown contact. "Silence the wife before morning. The files are still with her cousin." Ao's eyes widened. He picked up the phone slowly. "Zuri," he said quietly, "they think I have something I don't even know about." Zuri met his gaze, realization dawning. "The day before he pushed me, Malik made me sign something. He said it was for our baby's trust fund." "What did you sign?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But he made me use my thumbprint." Ao looked at her, then at the phone still clutched in his hand. "That wasn't a trust fund, Zuri. That was a transfer authorization." Her face drained of color. "You mean, the last of the stolen money?" He nodded grimly. "And whoever's behind this thinks it's in my possession." Outside, sirens wailed again, growing louder. Ao turned to the window, staring at the dark coastline beyond. "If we don't find that account before they do," he said, "they won't stop coming." Zuri clutched her baby closer. "Then we find it first." Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the lagoon far below, the same water that had buried lies, bodies, and fortunes alike. And in its depths, something still waited. Something Malik hadn't told anyone about. The following morning, Lagos stirred awake beneath a bruised sky. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried the heavy scent of salt, smoke, and secrets. Zuri sat in her hospital bed, her baby swaddled beside her, while Ao paced the room. His phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from journalists, task force officials, even family members frightened by the news. But he ignored them all. He was deep in thought, eyes fixed on the cracked phone he'd taken from one of the hitmen. "Whoever sent those men knew exactly where to find you," he muttered. "That means there's a leak inside the task force, or someone watching us in real time." Zuri's face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. "Ao, last night, when you said they think you have something, could it be connected to that trust fund Malik made me sign?" "I'm sure of it," Ao said. "That signature must have transferred something big. Probably the remaining funds he couldn't hide physically. Offshore, encrypted, hidden in plain sight." Zuri frowned. "But how can we find it?" "He never let me near his files." Ao tapped the phone against his chin. "Maybe we don't have to. Malik had a habit, he used personal names as passwords. Family dates. Things that looked harmless." He looked up suddenly. "When's your anniversary?" Zuri blinked. "October 12th. Ao typed a string into the phone's secure notes app, 1012, but it didn't unlock. He tried again, adding their daughter's name, Amara 1012. The screen flashed, then opened. They both froze. Inside was a hidden folder labeled, "For the Future." Ao tapped it open. Dozens of documents appeared, spreadsheets, transaction logs, offshore account numbers. But one file caught his attention, project_lagoon_confidential.mov. Zuri's hand trembled. "Play it." He hit play. The video began with static, then faded into footage of the very lagoon where the second drum was found. The camera panned over construction barges and workers unloading crates. A familiar voice narrated off-screen, "Malik's. Shipment 3 has arrived. 50 barrels disguised as chemical containers. Half will go to Bayfront, the rest to the deep storage units beneath the governor's property. The clients want everything operational before next quarter." Ao's face darkened. "Clients?" The camera turned toward a man in a white agbada standing near the dock, the governor himself, smiling faintly as he signed papers handed to him by foreign men in suits. Zuri gasped. "Oh my God, they were smuggling weapons." Ao paused the video, his pulse racing. "This is it. The proof that connects them all, Malik, the governor, those foreign suppliers." He looked at her gravely. If this leaks, half the government could collapse. Zuri's fingers tightened around her blanket. Then we have to get it out. No, Ao's voice was sharp. If we post this now, they'll track us down before it spreads. We need to get it into the right hands, the people who can protect you and Amara. Who? He hesitated, then said, there's a journalist I trust, Nkema Para from the Nation's Eye. She's been covering corruption cases for years. She's fearless, and she's hidden before. Zuri nodded. Then we find her. By afternoon, Ao had arranged a quiet discharge from the hospital under police escort. But as their convoy left the parking lot, Zuri noticed something odd. A black van following 2 cars behind. Ao, she whispered, clutching Amara's carrier. That van again. Ao glanced in the side mirror. His jaw tightened. Stay calm. The van kept its distance through the crowded streets, weaving between buses and Okadas. When they turned toward the mainland bridge, it turned too. Driver, Ao said, take the next left, through Makoko. The driver blinked. Makoko? Sir, that area. Do it, Ao snapped. The convoy veered off the main road into the maze of wooden walkways and floating shacks that made up the Makoko slum, a place too chaotic for clean assassinations. The van tried to follow but got stuck behind a line of market trucks. Good, Ao said. We lose them here. He and Zuri slipped out at a narrow alley where a friend of Ao's ran a cyber cafe. Inside, the humming of old computers filled the room. Ao handed a flash drive to a teenage boy behind the counter. Listen, Junior, Ao said. You see this video? You upload it to the Nation's Eye secure drop. Use the encryption key I gave you, no mistakes. The boy nodded seriously. I go do Oga? Zuri watched, heart pounding. What if they trace the upload? They won't, Ao said. The cafe's network bounces through 3 VPN layers. They'd have to tear the whole internet apart to find it. But before the upload finished, the lights flickered, once, twice, and then went out completely. The boy frowned. Light on go. Ao's stomach dropped. No. That wasn't Nipa, that was a cut. Outside, tires screeched. The roar of engines echoed through the narrow wooden streets. Men shouted in Hausa, commands urgent and sharp. They found us, Ao breathed. He grabbed Zuri's hand. Go take the back exit. Junior, save the file offline. The boy yanked the USB from the port and nodded. I get am. Before Ao could respond, bullets ripped through the front windows. Screams filled the alley. He pulled Zuri behind a stack of crates, shielding her and the baby as splinters flew. They're not police, Zuri whispered. Their uniforms are fake. I know, Ao said, reloading his pistol. They're mercenaries, Malik's old friends. He peeked out, saw 3 men advancing through the smoke. On my mark, we run left toward the docks. There's a fishing path that leads to open water. Zuri nodded, trembling but determined. Now. They bolted, slipping through the back, splashing across the flooded planks as shouts erupted behind them. Bullets tore through the boards, sending water spraying. Ao fired once, hitting a barrel near their pursuers. It exploded in a cloud of fire and debris, buying them seconds. By the time they reached the dock, a boatman stood ready, confused but willing. A beg what'n happen? No time. Ao barked. Go. The man gunned the small motorboat into motion just as more shots rang out. Zuri clutched Amara close, ducking as sparks danced across the water. Where are we going? She shouted over the engine. Offshore, Ao yelled. To meet Nkem. She's waiting near Tarqua Bay. Zuri looked behind them. The black van was gone, but the men were not. 2 other boats were already following, their engines screaming. Faster. Ao shouted. The driver pushed the throttle until the motor coughed and roared. The lagoon wind whipped their faces as they raced toward the open ocean. Behind them, the pursuers closed in. One of them raised a gun. A shot cracked, grazing Ao's arm. He hissed in pain but didn't stop. Then, ahead of them, another boat appeared. For a heartbeat, Zuri feared it was more enemies. But as it drew closer, she saw a woman in a yellow raincoat waving frantically. Nkem. Ao shouted. The journalist reached for their boat as they drew alongside. You brought it? She yelled. Ao nodded, clutching the flash drive Junior had saved. Everything's here. The video, the documents, all of it. Then give it. He tossed it to her just as another bullet whizzed past. The journalist ducked, caught it, and signaled to her driver. We'll broadcast it live from the ship. The boat sped away into the mist. Ao turned back. Their pursuers were almost upon them. Hold tight, he shouted. He yanked the wheel hard, steering into a sharp turn. Their small boat smashed through a wave, barely keeping balance. Then a deafening boom echoed behind them. The pursuing boat had hit one of the hidden reefs, splintering in an explosion of fire and salt. For a long moment, silence ruled again, only the engine's hum and the baby's soft cry. Zuri collapsed against Ao, trembling. Is it over? Ao looked out at the horizon, where the second boat disappeared into the golden haze, carrying the truth with it. Not yet, he said quietly. But now, the world will know. To the audience, softly woven into the narrative. If you've been following the story this far, what would you do if you were in Ao's shoes? Would you risk your life to expose the truth or walk away to protect your family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you believe stories like this should reach more people, don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend. But as the waves settled behind them, neither Zuri nor Ao knew that the broadcast would awaken powers far beyond the governor, powers that had been sleeping in the shadows of Project Lagoon. Because in a government basement someone was watching the same footage go live, and whispering to a colleague. They found the small piece. The colleague nodded. Then it's time they see the big one. The news broke before sunrise. Every major network, both local and international, replayed the leaked footage from the lagoon. Malik's voice, the governor's signature, the shipment of chemical barrels. It looped across every screen from Lagos to Washington. Headlines screamed, Project Lagoon exposed. Weapons, corruption, and political collusion. By midday, crowds filled the streets demanding answers. The governor's mansion was surrounded by protesters. Military trucks lined the highways, blocking exits. The government called it a foreign manipulation. The people called it truth. But inside a small safe house near Tarkwa Bay, Ao and Zuri weren't celebrating. The baby slept in a basket beside them, peaceful despite the storm outside. Nkema Para, the journalist who had risked everything to release the footage, paced the room, her laptop open to a live feed of chaos. They can't stop it now, she said, her voice fierce but shaky. It's gone global. Even if they pull it down here, mirrors of the video are already everywhere. Reddit, Twitter, TikTok. People are calling it the Lagoon Leak. Ao sat near the window, wrapping a bandage around his arm. Then we did it. But Zuri wasn't smiling. No. We woke something. You saw the men who followed us. They weren't just hired thugs. They were trained. Nkem turned, face tightening. You're right. And they're not done. She opened another file on her laptop. I received an encrypted message an hour ago from an anonymous whistleblower in the federal agency that arrested Malik. They say Project Lagoon wasn't just a corruption ring. Ao frowned. Then what was it? Nkem hesitated, then clicked play. A new video loaded, grainy footage from a security camera inside a warehouse. Workers in protective suits moved around massive metal containers. One of them slipped, and the lid popped open just long enough to reveal faint blue vapor curling upward. The man nearest to it collapsed instantly. Zuri gasped. What is that? Biochemical agents, Nkem said quietly. Experimental, meant to be destroyed after the war in the north. But instead someone sold them. Your husband's lagoon was the smuggling route. Ao's face went pale. So it wasn't just money laundering, it was weapons trafficking. Nkem nodded. And now half those containers are unaccounted for. The room fell silent except for the soft sound of waves slapping against the dock outside. Zuri held Amara closer. If they're missing, who has them now? Nkem closed the laptop slowly. That's the question keeping me alive. Across town, chaos ruled. Governor Ibrahim's convoy tore through the backroads of Lekki, escorted by armed guards. Inside the car, the governor was shouting into his phone. You told me this couldn't trace back to us, he barked. Now the entire world has the footage. The voice on the other end was calm, mechanical. The footage was expected. Containment measures are in motion. You must leave the city within the hour. I can't leave, the governor snapped. The press is outside my gate. The president wants me on air denying everything. You misunderstand, the voice said. You are not leaving for politics. You are leaving for survival. The agency has decided to erase all witnesses to Project Lagoon. The line went dead. The governor froze. Then, in the rearview mirror, he saw it. A black helicopter hovering low over the expressway, no insignia, no lights. Drive faster, he whispered. But it was too late. The explosion lit up the sky. By evening, the safe house shook from the distant blast. The power flickered, then returned. Nkem looked out the window. That came from Lekki. Ao's phone buzzed. A message from one of his task force contacts. Governor Ibrahim confirmed dead. Military presence increasing across Lagos. Official narrative. Foreign terrorist retaliation. Ao dropped the phone on the table. They're cleaning up the mess. Zuri's voice was small but steady. Which means we're next. Nkem shut her laptop with a sharp click. Then we move tonight. I have a contact at the embassy, she can get you both out of the country. The story has already gone international. Staying here is suicide. Ao shook his head. No. If we leave we look guilty. They'll say we made it all up. Nkem fixed him with a hard stare. And if you stay they'll put your names on gravestones before morning. Choose Ao. He looked at Zuri. She was pale, exhausted, but her eyes held the same quiet fire she'd had the night Malik pushed her into the pond. We're not running, she said softly. Not yet. Malik's still alive, isn't he? Nkem hesitated. The official report says he's in federal custody. But that's not the truth, Zuri said. They moved him before the leak. Which means someone still needs him. Ao realized what she was implying. You think he knows where the remaining barrels are? I don't think, Zuri said. I know. Nkem rubbed her temples. Zuri, even if that's true, there's no way to reach him now. Zuri looked toward the window where the sea wind pushed the curtains inward. There's always a way. Malik left a trail, he always did. You said the video called the lagoon Phase 3. That means there's a Phase 4. Ao frowned. And if he hid Phase 3 underwater, where would he hide Phase 4? Nkem's eyes widened as she made the connection. The old oil rigs. Ao stared at her. You mean the decommissioned rigs off the coast? Nkem nodded. Exactly. They've been unregulated for years. Perfect for storage, completely invisible from land. Zuri took a deep breath. Then that's where we go. Ao shook his head. Zuri, no, you've just given birth, we're being hunted. She interrupted quietly. If we don't end it, Amara will grow up in a world where monsters like Malik and his friends never die, they just change uniforms. The silence stretched. Then Ao nodded slowly. All right. We find the rig. That night, under the cover of darkness, they boarded Nkem's contact's small trawler, a rusted fishing boat that smelled of diesel and courage. As Lagos lights faded behind them, the ocean ahead was endless and black, broken only by the distant glimmer of abandoned rigs on the horizon. Ao stood beside Zuri, scanning the waves. Once we find it, he said, what do we do? Expose it, Zuri said. All of it. Every barrel, every name. This time no shadows. Nkem adjusted her cap, watching the dark silhouettes ahead. Let's hope the sea keeps fewer secrets than the land. But as they approached the first rig, the radar blinked, not once but twice. Ao frowned. That's strange. There's another vessel out here. The captain peered at the radar. Bigger than us. Maybe a cargo ship? Before anyone could respond, a distant spotlight burst to life. Then another. And through the mist, a sleek black ship emerged, silent and massive, with no flag and no number, its deck lined with men in tactical gear. Nkem's voice dropped to a whisper. That's not Navy. Zuri's grip tightened on the baby carrier. Then who are they? Ao stared as the spotlight swung toward them, blinding white cutting through the fog. A loudspeaker boomed across the waves. Vessel, identify yourself. You are entering restricted waters belonging to Project Lagoon. Ao's heart stopped cold. Zuri whispered, Project Lagoon still exists. Ao turned to the captain. Turn the boat around. Now. But before the engine could reverse, the black ship fired a warning flare into the sky, red light bleeding over the water like a wound. The ocean between them shimmered with reflected flame. Then through the static of the loudspeaker came a new voice, low, calm and hauntingly familiar. Zuri? Oh. I warned you not to touch what you don't understand. Zuri froze. That voice. Ao swallowed hard, gripping the railing. It was Malik. For a long moment, the sea itself seemed to stop breathing. The red flare faded, and only the low hum of the engines filled the air, two vessels facing each other in the dark, divided by a stretch of restless black water and the weight of betrayal. Zuri stood motionless at the bow of the trawler, the salt wind whipping her hair. Her baby whimpered softly against her chest, sensing her mother's fear. Malik's voice crackled again through the loudspeaker, colder this time as though carried from the bottom of the ocean. You should have stayed quiet, Zuri, he said. You were never supposed to see this side of me. Ao's knuckles tightened around the railing. Malik, what have you done? They said you were in federal custody. Malik laughed, that same sharp, humorless sound Zuri remembered from the night he pushed her into the pond. Federal custody? My dear cousin, you still think the government runs this? You're standing in our ocean now. Everything out here belongs to the project, including me. Zuri's heart pounded. The project? You mean the same project that's killed innocent people? You call that belonging? Don't twist what you don't understand, Malik's voice replied, colder now. This was never about money or power. It was about control. Control of resources, control of fear, control of narrative. Do you think they ever let men like me rise without a leash? Nkem whispered, he's delusional. But Zuri shook her head slowly. No, he's telling the truth. They used him and now he's using them. Ao glanced at the radar. The black ship was closing in. We can't outfight that thing. We need to buy time. He turned to Nkem. Radio anyone, Coast Guard, foreign media, I don't care. Just make noise. Nkem nodded and hurried below deck. Meanwhile, Zuri stepped forward to the edge, her voice carrying over the waves. Malik, if you have even a drop of the man I married left in you, think about Amara. Think about what kind of world you're building for her. Pause. Then the loudspeaker clicked softly and Malik's voice changed, quieter, almost human again. You named her Amara? He asked. Yes, Zuri said. Grace. A long silence followed. The black ship drifted closer until its hull loomed like a mountain of steel. Then, with a hiss, a smaller boat detached from its side, sleek and armed. It sped toward them carrying 3 figures. Stay back. Ao shouted, raising his pistol. Malik's voice came again, eerily calm. I'm not here to kill you, Zuri. I came to retrieve what belongs to the project. The rest of the shipment. Give it to me and you can leave. What shipment? Ao demanded. The data drive, Malik said. The one that was leaked only showed a fraction of what's real. The full archive, every client, every code name, every site, is still out there. It's worth more than all the money in the lagoon. Zuri exchanged a confused glance with Ao. We don't have it. Don't lie to me, Malik said sharply. The system traced the original encryption key to your cousin's account. Nkem's voice rang from below deck. He's right. The backup drive's still pinging, it's broadcasting coordinates. Ao's stomach sank. They're tracking us. Malik's smaller boat was almost alongside now. Under the harsh floodlight, his face appeared, gaunt, scarred, eyes wild but alive. Zuri's breath caught. Malik. He stepped onto their deck, flanked by 2 armed men. The sea hissed between them as though even the waves feared to touch him. I never wanted this, he said quietly, almost to himself. I built a system that was supposed to feed us, not destroy us. But power, he glanced at his hands. Power is like fire. It doesn't care who gets burned. Zuri stared at him, fury and pity twisting in her chest. You murdered your assistant. You stole from the people you swore to help. You pushed me into a pond full of sharks, Malik. Don't talk about fire, you are the fire. His jaw clenched. And yet you survived it. Ao took a step forward, gun raised. This ends here. You're coming with us. Malik smiled faintly. You really think there's still in us? Look around you, Ao. The same men who gave me orders are the ones sending soldiers after you now. We're all pawns on the same board, the difference is I've learned to play back. Ao didn't lower his gun. Then play this right, surrender. Help us expose them completely. Malik's eyes flicked toward the baby. Expose them? And make orphans of every family they'll destroy next. He shook his head. You don't know what you're asking. Before Ao could reply, a massive explosion erupted on the horizon, a flash of light from one of the oil rigs. The sea heaved violently. A column of smoke twisted into the sky. Nkem ran back onto deck, shouting, They're destroying the evidence. They're wiping everything connected to Project Lagoon. Malik turned sharply, panic flickering across his face. No. They can't. Another explosion boomed closer this time. The black ship began to retreat, alarms blaring. Ao yelled over the chaos. They're taking out their own sites. They don't care who dies. The trawler rocked violently, throwing everyone off balance. Malik stumbled, crashing into the railing. Zuri instinctively reached out, then hesitated. The last time she'd done that, he'd pushed her into the water. Malik saw the hesitation and something in his face softened. You see? That's the curse of what I became. No one reaches for me anymore. Zuri's throat tightened. You made that choice. I did, he whispered. Then, almost gently, and now I'm going to unmake it. He grabbed the edge of the railing and swung himself onto the smaller boat. His men shouted after him, but he ignored them. He slammed the throttle, speeding toward the burning rig. Ao blinked. He's going back? Zuri's eyes followed the small boat cutting through the smoke. He's trying to destroy the files himself before they do. Or he's trying to save them, Ao murmured. Nkem shouted from the console, the shockwave from that rig will hit us in minutes. We have to go. Zuri looked at the flames on the horizon, the last silhouette of Malik disappearing into the inferno. Wait, she said softly, almost to herself. If he's really going there. Ao grabbed her hand. Zuri, no. It's suicide. She turned to him, tears streaking her face. If those files vanish, this all starts again. Every life lost, every lie told, wasted. Ao stared at her, torn between reason and loyalty. Then he handed the baby to Nkem. Keep her safe. What are you doing? Nkem demanded. He met Zuri's gaze. If you're going, I'm going with you. They jumped onto the smaller rescue craft tied to the side of the trawler. Zuri's hair whipped in the wind as Ao started the engine, steering toward the burning rig where Malik had vanished. Behind them, Nkem held Amara close, shouting into the radio for help. The flames grew larger, the sea rougher, and the wind carried the smell of smoke and diesel. Zuri's voice trembled as she looked at the fire ahead. If we don't come back. Ao nodded. Then at least we'll know we tried to end it. Their boat sped into the heart of the blaze, toward the rig where everything had begun, and where, one way or another, Project Lagoon would meet its end. Audience engagement prompt, integrated seamlessly. As Ao and Zuri disappeared into the flames, the story paused on that haunting image, two small figures against the vast sea of corruption and fire. If you were in their place, would you risk your life to end the evil once and for all, or save yourself to protect the next generation? Let us know what you would do in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for the next part of this tale, and tell us where you're watching from. Because what comes next will change everything. Far away, deep beneath the collapsing rig, a set of floodlights flickered on, revealing hundreds of sealed metal drums arranged in neat rows. Each one marked with a symbol no one had seen before, L4. And one by one, their lids began to hiss open. The sea was on fire. Flames rolled across the waves like molten glass, and the air was thick with the roar of collapsing steel. The oil rig loomed ahead, a broken skeleton of light and smoke. Ao steered the small rescue craft through the chaos, his knuckles white on the controls. Zuri clung to the railing, coughing against the acrid fumes. The glow reflected in her eyes made her look almost otherworldly, part angel, part survivor. Ao, she shouted over the noise, look! Through the smoke, a smaller vessel bobbed near the rig's base, Malik's boat. It was tethered to a ladder leading up the steel framework. He's inside, Ao said grimly. We have to move now. They brought their boat alongside the ladder. The heat was unbearable. Sparks fell like fiery rain. Ao went first, gripping the slick rungs, helping Zuri climb after him. Halfway up, a thunderous crack split the air. One of the rig's support beams snapped, sending a shockwave through the structure. Metal screamed as the whole platform tilted slightly. Keep moving, Ao yelled. When they reached the deck, the scene before them was both horrifying and mesmerizing. Massive drums, hundreds of them, lined the platform, arranged in rows that stretched into the smoke. Each drum was stamped with the symbol L4 and hissed faintly, vapor escaping through hairline cracks. The air shimmered with an eerie blue mist. Zuri covered her nose. This can't be chemical waste, it's active. Ao's stomach turned. He said it was meant to be destroyed, but this looks like it's waking up. From behind the barrels, Malik appeared, drenched in sweat, his face smeared with soot, his once white shirt torn and blackened. He held a small device in his hand, a detonator. Stop right there. Ao barked, raising his pistol. Malik didn't flinch. He stood at the edge of the platform, the fire dancing behind him like judgment itself. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly. You'll die for nothing. Zuri stepped forward, voice trembling but strong. Then at least we die stopping you. Malik shook his head. You still think this is about me? You don't get it, Zuri, this wasn't my creation. They built it. Foreign companies. Military labs. The governor was just the face. I was the errand boy who learned too much. Then why protect them? Ao demanded. End it. Give us the evidence and we can bring them all down. Malik's expression cracked, just for a moment. I am ending it. He raised the detonator. There's enough explosive on this rig to vaporize everything. The barrels, the data, the proof, all of it. The world will never touch Project Lagoon again. Zuri's heart lurched. Malik, don't. You'll kill thousands if the wind spreads those chemicals. Better they die not knowing, he said bitterly, then live knowing what their leaders plan to unleash. Ao took a step closer, gun trained on him. You think destruction equals justice? Malik's voice broke. It's the only justice I have left. He pressed his thumb halfway down, and then froze. Zuri had stepped between him and the barrels, her eyes locked on his. You wanted control, Malik? But control isn't about killing the truth, it's about facing it. For a heartbeat, the firelight softened his face, revealing the man she once loved beneath the madness. He looked at her, truly looked, and his hand began to tremble. I never wanted to hurt you, he whispered. You already did, she said. But you can stop hurting everyone else. Give me the detonator. Behind them, another explosion rippled through the rig, shaking the platform violently. The barrels rattled, several toppled, spilling more blue vapor. The ocean below boiled where the chemicals hit. Ao shouted, Zuri, we're running out of time. Malik's eyes darted to the spreading vapor, then back to her. If I hand this over, he said, you promise me one thing. What? Raise Amara to never be like us. Zuri nodded through tears. I swear. He exhaled shakily and extended the detonator, but before she could take it, a gunshot cracked from the far end of the deck. Malik jerked backward, blood blooming across his chest. No! Zuri screamed. A group of men in black tactical suits swarmed out of the smoke, soldiers from the same black ship that had hunted them earlier. The leader, a tall figure in a gas mask, pointed his weapon straight at Ao. Step away from the controls, the man barked. This facility is under containment order. Ao grabbed Zuri, pulling her behind a row of barrels. They're not here to save anyone, he hissed. They're here to cover it up. Malik coughed, sliding to the ground. Run, before they ignite it all. Bullets tore through the air. Sparks erupted where metal met flame. Zuri pressed her palm to Malik's cheek, whispering, I forgive you. He tried to smile, a broken, bleeding shadow of his old charm. Grace, he murmured. You named her well. Then his eyes went still. Ao grabbed Zuri's wrist. We have to go, now. They sprinted through the maze of barrels as the mercenaries advanced. One of the soldiers fired, hitting a drum. Blue vapor exploded outward, engulfing the platform. The men screamed, clawing at their masks as the mist ate through their suits. The entire rig began to groan. Fire swallowed the upper decks. Jump! Ao shouted. Zuri hesitated, looking one last time at Malik's still body. May the water wash your sins. Then she leaped. They plunged into the burning sea. The heat bit at their skin, but the water swallowed them quickly. They kicked hard, breaking the surface just as a thunderous blast shattered the night sky. The oil rig erupted, a column of fire reaching high into the clouds. The shockwave flung them apart. Zuri's ears rang, her vision blurred. She screamed Ao's name, but the roar of the ocean drowned everything. Debris rained around her, chunks of metal, pieces of burning wood. She clung to a floating plank, gasping. Through the smoke she saw him, Ao, struggling against the waves, barely conscious. She tried to swim toward him, but the current dragged them apart. Ao, she cried, choking on salt and tears. Hold on. A final blast from the collapsing rig sent a tidal wave surging outward, sweeping both of them into darkness. When Zuri opened her eyes again, dawn was breaking. She was lying on a beach, sand wet and cold beneath her. The sea was quiet now, as though nothing had happened. Her baby's cry pierced the silence. Zuri turned sharply. Nkem was kneeling beside her, clutching Amara, tears streaming down her face. You're alive. Nkem sobbed. We found you on the shore, the whole coast is burning but you made it. Zuri coughed, her voice hoarse. Ao, where's Ao? Nkem looked toward the horizon, where smoke still rose from the distant wreck. They're searching, she whispered. But no one's found him yet. Zuri's heart clenched, but she held her baby tight, rocking her gently. He'll come back, she whispered. He has to. Nkem placed a hand on her shoulder. Zuri, the world saw everything. The explosion, the gunfire, your names are everywhere now. You're not just survivors anymore. You're symbols. Zuri stared at the waves. Symbols don't change anything, she said softly. Truth does. She turned to Nkem. Promise me, tell the world about the L4 barrels. Don't let them say it ended with Malik. Nkem nodded firmly. I will. Audience engagement prompt, seamless integration. As the camera of the story lingers on Zuri and her baby against the quiet morning sea, her eyes lift toward the smoke curling across the horizon. If you lost everything but the truth, would you still risk everything to protect it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're still watching, remember to like, subscribe, and share this story so others can witness the courage it takes to fight darkness with nothing but truth. But far beneath the water, where the rig's wreckage settled into silence, one of the L4 barrels drifted free, its seal cracked open, releasing a faint blue pulse into the depths. And not far away, a hand broke the surface, Ao's, clutching the edge of a floating metal door. He coughed violently, dragging in a ragged breath. His gaze turned toward the rising sun, eyes hard with purpose. The battle wasn't over. The morning after the explosion, the world trembled. News outlets called it the Lagos Inferno. Satellite images showed the rig's remains, twisted steel floating in the Atlantic like bones. Reporters speculated about chemical leaks, secret operations, and international conspiracies. But none of them knew the full story. Only 3 people did. And the man everyone thought had drowned, Ao. The shore of silence. The waves pushed Ao's battered body onto a stretch of sand miles down the coast. He lay there for hours, half-conscious, coughing seawater, his mind spinning between pain and purpose. Every muscle screamed, but somewhere in the haze, one truth burned clear. Zuri and the baby had to live for this to mean something. When he finally dragged himself upright, he saw a piece of wreckage washed up beside him. A twisted metal casing, and inside it, miraculously intact, a data drive, blinking faintly with a dying blue light. He stared at it, disbelief mixing with dread. "You're still alive," he whispered. The final key to Project Lagoon's truth. He tucked it under his shirt, forcing himself to his feet. The beach stretched endlessly in both directions, empty but for gulls and debris. Smoke smudged the horizon. He started walking. Zuri's resolve. By midday, Zuri sat in a makeshift evacuation camp with Amara in her arms. People milled around, dazed, fishermen, villagers, even workers from the destroyed rig. The smell of smoke clung to everything. Nkem was on the phone with her editor, her voice low but urgent. "Yes, it's confirmed. The rig was storing L4, not just chemicals but biological agents. The explosion may have released trace amounts. We need containment units now." Zuri listened in silence. Every word felt heavier than the air around her. When Nkem hung up, she said, "The government's blaming terrorists. They're denying everything. Again." Zuri stared out at the water. "They always will, until someone shows them what's left." "What do you mean?" Nkem asked cautiously. Zuri turned to her. "The barrels didn't all detonate. I saw it before we jumped. One was still sealed. It's still out there." Nkem hesitated. "Zuri, if that's true, it's not our job anymore. The world saw the leak, let the experts handle the rest." Zuri shook her head, her eyes dark with quiet determination. "If we stop now, they'll bury this again. Just like they buried Halima. Just like they buried Malik's crimes. They'll say it was all an accident." Nkem exhaled, rubbing her temples. "Then what are you suggesting?" Zuri's lips trembled, but her voice was steady. "We go back. We finish it. The return." Night fell again over the coast. Zuri left Amara in Nkem's care, whispering a prayer over her before setting off in a small rescue skiff with 2 volunteer divers. The sea was eerily calm, like it was watching. Halfway to the wreck site, their searchlight cut through the water, catching the faint metallic shimmer of debris. "There?" one diver called. "Something's down there." They plunged into the dark. Minutes passed. Then a crackle over the radio. "We found a barrel, still sealed." But before Zuri could respond, another voice broke through the static. "Zuri?" Her breath caught. "Ao?" A silhouette climbed aboard the boat. Wet, limping, bruised, but alive. She froze, unable to speak, then rushed forward, tears spilling freely. You're alive." He managed a weak smile. "Barely." They embraced, the world narrowing to that one impossible moment. 2 people who'd survived the same fire finding each other again. But it didn't last long. The divers surfaced, struggling with something massive between them, the intact L4 barrel. Ao helped them hoist it onto the deck. The seal blinked faintly, the same blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. "What now?" Zuri asked. Ao looked out at the burning horizon. "Now we end it, the right way. The final truth." They brought the barrel to a quarantine facility managed by an independent humanitarian group, one that operated outside government influence. Nkem met them there, her camera rolling. "This footage," she said, "will go to every major outlet in the world. No editing. No filters. Just the truth." Scientists in hazmat suits surrounded the barrel. One of them connected a diagnostic scanner and froze. "This isn't chemical at all," he murmured. "It's biological. Engineered." Zuri frowned. Engineered for what? The scientist's face turned ashen. Control. It's a pathogen, dormant, but if weaponized it could wipe out cities. Ao's jaw tightened. Then we're lucky we stopped it. The scientist glanced at him gravely. Stopped one barrel. There were hundreds. The room went silent. Zuri's heart thudded. So even after all this we didn't destroy it all? No, Ao said quietly. But we exposed it. Nkem lowered her camera, tears in her eyes. You did more than that. You gave the world a choice, to look away or to finally face what's been festering under the surface. Zuri looked at the camera lens, her voice breaking but clear. If you're watching this, don't let them turn your silence into approval. Evil doesn't vanish in the dark, it grows there. Speak up. Sure. Fight back. For those who can't. The lights in the facility flickered. Ao turned toward the window. Dawn was rising again, blood orange, the same color as the first explosion. He exhaled slowly. Maybe this time the sunrise means something. Zuri took his hand. For Amara it has to. Epilogue. Weeks later the world had changed. International agencies swarmed Nigeria, uncovering dozens of hidden sites connected to Project Lagoon. Arrests reached the highest levels of power: military officers, governors, foreign contractors. Zuri and Ao testified before a global tribunal. Their names became symbols of resistance, their story a legend whispered in classrooms and marketplaces alike. But in private, they lived quietly by the coast, raising Amara among the sound of gentle waves and the hum of peace finally earned. One evening, as the sun sank behind the horizon, Zuri sat on the porch with her daughter on her lap. Your father once said water keeps secrets, she murmured. But sometimes the tide brings them back so the world can start again. Amara looked up, eyes bright. Mommy, did the bad people go away? Zuri smiled faintly. Not all of them. But people like you will make sure they never win again. Ao joined them, wrapping his arm around Zuri as they watched the sunset bleed into the ocean. For the first time in a long time the water was calm. Final audience engagement prompt, for YouTube viewers. As the story fades out on Zuri, Ao, and little Amara watching the sunset, the narrator's voice softens. Some secrets sink beneath the waves, but truth always finds its way back to shore. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Would you forgive someone who destroyed everything if it meant saving everyone else? Remember to like, subscribe, and share this tale with someone who believes in justice, no matter the cost. Because sometimes, the greatest heroes aren't the ones who fight with power, but the ones who fight with truth.